Welcome back to Uncinched, where we uncinch what's really going on in the horse industry. We have another exciting guest in the saddle episode for you today, where we will be joined on the mic with Alex Grayton. Both Britton and I are super excited to host Alex, as he is a very well-respected equine professional in the English scene.
As a reminder, the Guest in the Saddle segment is where we sit down and talk with a wide range of professionals who live, breathe, and work in the horse world. Guest in the Saddle gives you an inside look at their stories, wisdom, and gives you the opportunity to learn about different ways horses influence people's careers. These conversations are meant to give you insight on the multifaceted industry, to teach and inspire and show you the way horses influence history and people.
Alexander Grayton is a professional showjumper, trainer, clinician, and founder of Grayton Farms, a high-performance competition and sales program he runs with his wife Holly in the Calgary area.
With more than 2 decades competing at the FEI level, he's built a successful and highly regarded reputation for developing horses and riders for the international arena. He has produced numerous young horses into national champions, national and international Grand Prix winners, equitation stars, and hunter superstars. In addition to that, he has trained and mentored riders into similar success stories in the U25 Young Riders FEI Grand Prix and Nation Cup competitions.
Beyond the ring, he's a strong voice in the sport, known for his clinics, educational sessions, and he's also contributed on the governance side, serving with Jump Alberta and Equestrian Canada's Youth Development Committee.
And when he's not in the saddle, you can catch him consulting in the energy and infrastructure sector. Because, yes, he's also an engineer with multiple finance designations, which definitely comes in handy when running a business.
So, without further ado, let's welcome the man of the hour, showjumper, trainer, coach, entrepreneur, and English riding advocate, Alex Grayton. Alex, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm really excited, so I'd love to just jump right in and go right off the deep end. So we have so many questions, and we cannot wait to, ask. So for those who don't know you, can you give, the Alex Grayton origin story? How did you first fall in love with horses? How did this come to be?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know everybody's entry into the horse world, but for me, I don't come from a horsey family at all. Like, my parents didn't ride. I don't think my mom rode until she was 60 when we got her a horse to try, with the exception of maybe like a trail ride or whatever in the mountains. So not a horsey family, but my sister and we both sort of happened upon them. We were visiting our grandparents in North Carolina when I was maybe 5 or 4, something like that. My sister's a couple years older. And the neighborhood where my grandparents lived, there was a sort of like a pony riding, trail riding, sort of a very, very small facility right on the corner of their neighborhood. And just for something to do while we were visiting the grandparents, they popped us on these little horses. And I would say for both of us that it stuck right away. Like, we were just, this is pretty fun. Like, let's do that again. And so then that's what we wanted to do. That's what we wanted to do every day for the rest of our trip. And so when we came home from that, my parents, they certainly understood that my sister had the bug. She was old enough. I was tagging along, whatever she wanted to do. I was happy to follow along. But my sister had the bug. She wanted to try. So they got her some lessons at a local school horse place. It doesn't exist anymore. So they got her a couple of lessons, and I was too young. Whatever their age limit was, I didn't meet it. So I was just watching, basically.
Hey, we need a cheering squad.
Yeah, so. Totally. No, happy to provide that. I'm sure I was more of a distraction at that point, but it doesn't matter. And then when I was finally old enough, then they got me some lessons too. And so I started riding school horse lessons at the place where my sister started, but only for a couple of months before we switched to Teesdale, which still exists. Man, I was probably here for 10 years. Riding, started once a week and then maybe twice a week on a school horse, and eventually a half lease and then a lease, and then things get carried away as they do. I would say it was a slow burn though. Like it took me 10 years to get through that progression. Spruce Meadows being in our backyard too was very helpful. Again, just thinking back to my parents and trying to occupy our time. Like these kids and what are we going to do with them? And summertime, we need some outings or whatever. And so going to watch at Spruce Meadows and watch Ian Miller and Big Ben and that sort of vintage, that really helped propagate the interest, if you will. I rode very much as one of many items that I did in my daily life. But actually, and then I played tennis. I played tennis at a really high level for a really long time. That actually was I was more serious about that for a good chunk of time, until eventually it just sort of, the horses they were always there. They were always grabbing my attention, and I loved it. I was terrified of it as much as I loved it. I mean,
I feel that.
Yeah.
Some of the ladies that I started riding with at Teesdale, like this is sort of common in the English world anyway, but like I was one of only a couple of boys that did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was some sort of middle-aged ladies that were always around, and they would, tease me basically. I was crying. I was afraid to canter, like that was me when I was probably older than I should admit. And so, but anyway, there's lots of good stories about that, but I just kept wanting to come back. It terrified me, but I also couldn't leave it alone. And then eventually, when I was in university, that's when we bought our first horse, and then things really got carried away from there. Yeah.
I get that too.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. That's
I love it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I hear a lot of people, you either have the bug or you don't. And everyone that I know who rides, they always remember the first time that they did. And it's like, you just can't get away from it after that.
For sure.
I think it's kind of fun how everyone
even when you try.
Yeah, even when you try. It's either you got the bug or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's keep rolling into this. I mean, Britton and I were obviously more on the Western side of things, so a lot of these questions, forgive us, they're going to be more of educating us, I feel.
Yeah.
But our audience.
Yeah, and our audience, sure. Mainly us, though. So for those who might not know you, can you walk us through what it actually means to be a Grand Prix rider? What kind of preparation, training, and mindset would you say that takes?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a way to think about that that's specific to the sport itself, like imagining a show day or competition day. So if you're at a competition with a horse that's at that level, and so let's just say, because it's handy, Spruce Meadows in our backyard, like I say, and so if we're at Spruce Meadows and we're trying to get a horse ready for a big competition that we've been preparing for, there's obviously a whole science and lots of thought that goes into how to plan to peak at that point and everything. But then even just within the show week, generally speaking, the Grand Prix is going to be towards the end of the week, whether that's the Saturday or the Sunday. And then there'll be some competitions on the days leading up to it that, people use for various reasons. One is to qualify for the Grand Prix. Some of the bigger shows, you can't just enter the Grand Prix. You have to qualify to do it within the week. So there's a qualification aspect. I think otherwise there's also sort of making sure the horse is familiar with the arena. If it's a new place or a green horse or a new setting or something like this, you want to make sure the horse is feeling good, feeling comfortable, feeling as fit and ready as you hope they are. It makes no sense to jump the Grand Prix if you're not ready.
Fair enough.
Go
to the Super Bowl and never played football.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for all kinds of reasons, right? But I think that so much of this really depends on how your personal and unique situation with the horse. Like if it's an older horse, if it's deep in the show season, if it's a horse really well, then preparation can look a lot different. You maybe jump a class that's 1.35 m on Wednesday, and you wait and jump a big Grand Prix on Sunday. People do that. There are moments that makes sense. And then there are other scenarios where you maybe need to jump that same first class, but then you need to jump a big 1.45 m class on Friday, and then just keep them in the groove or continue getting them in the groove, or maybe even trying to be competitive before the Grand Prix. And so understanding your horse and your unique circumstances, that's certainly part of it. I think to zoom out beyond that, to think about how you even decide to go to the show. Training at home, that's obviously super comprehensive and important too. Being able to know when it's let's say you have a horse and it's a young horse or a promising horse, and you're trying to decide, hey, is it ready to jump its first Grand Prix? Like it's an important decision to make. And so, there's no one easy way to obviously announce you're going to do the Grand Prix. You can do that if you want to. It's just not the best way to just show up and say, hey, why not? We'll give it a whirl.
YOLO.
Yeah, exactly. And that can pay off. And obviously the odds are not in your favor. For sure. It doesn't make the most sense, but yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's important distinction too, of saying that you need to know when you're ready to do it, because sometimes that's the mental block on your own. Even we've both been at Stampede, and that's a very big situation for the horses. There's a lot of loud sounds. There's a lot of things going on that you cannot predict. And at what point do you know if your horse is actually ready for that or not? You can do all of, the ground manners. You can do all of the stress testing, if you will, but you really don't know until you get there. And at what point do you say, okay, I'm just going to dive in and see what happens without also putting yourself over the deep end and not, setting yourself up for success. So I think that can be very similar in that regard.
100%. I think that's, there's something to be said for, you don't need to jump the Grand Prix only if you think you're going to win it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a certain point in you and your horse's partnership where that makes sense. The horse is older. There's not so many classes left in its life, so to speak. And you want to be smart about conserving and so on. That makes sense. Put yourself on the other end of the spectrum, and it's the horse's first Grand Prix. So like at some point you're going to do it for the experience. So so the metrics for deciding that change, obviously it becomes more like, are we going to be okay? That's important. And because if you don't think that's true, then you have no business doing it. If you sort of think, worst case scenario, maybe we have 1 or 2 down, but the horse is going to be so much better for it, then there's a good case to do it. If the course matches your horse and its capabilities, or where you're at, or where it's at in the season, and how it fits into the bigger picture and whatever. So there, it's obviously pretty dynamic and
sometimes showing up is the biggest part.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's such a universal
lesson, even
testament to horsemanship too. Your approach and your how you go about it is going to be very different depending on
and your expectations that you're setting for yourself. Because if you, like you said, it's a horse that's young who has never been in this situation. Even if you have, you shouldn't be expecting I'm going to be the winner out of this all the time. Sometimes it, like you said, it's just about getting there and seeing what happens and
getting the experience,
so that the next year or when you do it next, it goes smoother. So I agree on that front.
Okay, cool. My next question for you is, what were some of the biggest challenges or roadblocks you faced on your journey to the FEI and Grand Prix circuits?
Lots. I mean, geez, it continues, like those roadblocks still exist, or some of them still do anyway. I mean, certainly I think, now I have more personal experience and more technical capabilities and whatever. My sort of riding resume is longer, but a lot of the really difficult hurdles to overcome still exist. I mean, namely, getting the horse. Like it's really difficult to get yourself well horsed these days, or should I say, it's really difficult. It's really expensive, which can be very
financially difficult.
There are plenty. Honestly, there are so many really good horses out there in the world. So it's not really that there's a lack of quality horses. It's that accessibility is quite hard. So that's a big one. I think back when I was first getting to that level, I think education was huge. Like it's a funny thing growing up in this city and this province with Spruce Meadows and everything. Like we can, the real sport is like right there in front of us. Like you can see it and you can get a sense for it, but there is no clear pathway to get there. Like that's quite difficult. Like, so take, for example, non-horsey people, my family's background, like, what do you know other than you go to Spruce Meadows and you look at what's happening and you think, great, well, like, I'll do that, I guess. But how do you know where to ride? How do you know whose advice to seek? How do you know where to find a horse?
Is a good advice to seek. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Those are serious questions. And so, I really greatly appreciate all of the people that helped me along the way and all of those little stepping stones, all the various trainers that I had, like, they're all uniquely responsible for what I know today. And at the same time, I also think, but it's part of the struggle is like every time that I sort of left and went to a new trainer or to try to open some new door, expand some horizon or whatever, I had that moment, fairly immediately that was, oh man, I should have done this sooner. But you don't know what you don't know. So how are you supposed to do that? And there is no, to be very clear, I'm not trying to say that like this is on some government organization to tell you how to do it, or because everybody's pathway is different. Yeah. But that was a big struggle, I suppose, for me, was to try to figure out what should I be doing? Like, what should I be looking for? Because I don't even know. My wife and I tell this story all the time because it's kind of funny, but many years ago, when we first started dating, this would be almost 20 years ago, we were having dinner and I was riding with a local trainer, and I had quite a nice horse. Like, I had just got him. I was very excited about it. And my wife at the time was riding quite a lot of dressage, educated in the world of, dressage, flat work and this and that. And so we're having this conversation about like, well, what do you do when you're working your horse on the days you're not jumping and this? And I'd say, I don't know. I just walk, trot, can, or do some circles. Like, I don't know, basically, because it was not that refined. And she said like, oh, you don't do shoulder in or, any lateral exercises? And I said, well, no, nobody's told me to do that. And if they thought I should, I'm sure somebody would have told me. I mean, her jaw was on the phone. I'm surprised she answered my calls after that, to be honest. But it was, the point of that is like, that was just where I was at that time, is like my understanding of cross-training, preparation, like all of these sort of things was so low. And yet I was jumping big jumps. So that there was a real disconnect there between, I was not maximizing all of where I'm going with all this. I feel really bad for that horse, because what an angel. He did so much in spite of the fact that I knew so little. And being able to know, like, should I have been jumping that big? In hindsight, 100% no. No chance. What a stupid idea. But there's also the other way to look at it, which is like, here I am, I'm learning. I have a horse that can do it. Yeah. So what am I supposed to do? Not take advantage of that? Yeah. And, so I in one sense, I always look back and think, if only I had that horse now, what a better job I would do by him. But at the same time, I wouldn't be here without him and that experience. So
I think that's everywhere. Like, we've talked about that, where, it's very hard to access information that's correct information, or what you believe to be correct at the time, because there's so many different ways of doing it in so many different disciplines and so many different households even. And especially if you don't necessarily have that financial background to be getting these really, really well finished horses in English or Western, you have a horse that you have to finish yourself, and you're also like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure.
And you think you do, and then you do it, and you're like, maybe I actually don't know that much. I've done that sometimes.
And it's so fun to like look back with the lenses that you have now. And you think about all the things that you were doing 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and you were doing the darn thing. But now with the knowledge, the information, the education, and everything that you have, it's like, it goes to show that you can get a lot accomplished with not a lot of knowledge, and that's a scary thought, but also kind of an empowering thought too.
It depends how you want to see that lens. You have to, and as long as you're open to education, if you don't know something, whatever, we all learn. Totally. I definitely, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I remember what I was doing when I was 10 with this horse, and that was a bad idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess within that, was there a turning point, whether it a horse, a coach, a moment that made you feel like you belong here in the Grand Prix scene, or is that just kind of come with time and experience, would you say?
I think there's a few sort of inflection points like that for me. I think, the first one was I was riding with Frank Sellinger at St. George's. His place is just south of Spruce Meadows. And he's the one that sort of kickstarted my a little bit more of a global awareness of things. So like my first trip to Europe to look for horses was with him. He my first horse that I ended up jumping in an FEI class, he found for me. And so that was my first time really jumping at that level, was with his help. So that was big. Did I feel like I belonged? Absolutely not. I had some really horrendous scores. At the same time, but I mean, that was, to be clear, I was jumping the World Cup qualifiers in California, and 3 months earlier, I had jumped to meter 35, so this was a big gap.
That was a big change
that we filled in pretty quickly. I didn't feel like I belonged in those classes, and yet I survived, and I was better for it. Was there another way to do it? 100%. Do I think that we could have made whatever? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But he was for sure one of the first major inflection point that, actually I can kind of hold my own a little bit. I would say the next major inflection point I rode with, my wife and I went on the road with Kyle King, who recently he was second in the $5 million Grand Prix at Spruce Meadows at the Masters. So this was when I moved on from Frank. We hit the road and basically lived like gypsies for a year riding with Kyle. We just got in the truck and started driving east and ended up in Cleveland. And I jumped the American Gold Cup. There was a lot of really cool stuff that we got to do with Kyle. And over the course of that year, which was very adventurous, to be fair, until about January. So this was from September till January. I'm not sure we were in the same place for longer than 2 weeks ever. There was a lot of hitting the road and show to show, or somewhere to just base the horses for a week off or whatever. And I mean, up to the Royal, I won the Talent Squad finals at the Royal, did the Canadian Championships, back down to Atlanta, over to Kentucky, Tennessee. We were everywhere. Through that experience of really just showing, finding out how to go on the road, pick shows that made sense for the horses and the level they were at, learn to be competitive in the sense that it mattered if you did well, because that helped fund the next thing. Mm-hmm. And that was how Kyle lived his life then, especially. Yeah. He certainly, he's very, very successful now, but back then he was sort of a Grand Prix chaser in the sense that whatever his string was, they would find the show they were going to tomorrow. And then they would try their best to win as much prize money as possible to be able to do the next thing. And so we learned how to do that a little bit. And so with that same group of horses that, I was hitting all these jumps at the World Cup qualifiers a couple months earlier, all of a sudden Kyle really helped me figure out how to make sense of them. And it was like a real art form to figure out, because it wasn't do XYZ exercise and that equals that. There was a lot of feeling. So that's what we talked about so much. And so I'm really grateful for Kyle for that. And ultimately, by the end of that year, we made quite a lot of prize money. We turned the exact same horses into competitive machines. The one horse was, he won at he won the final at the Royal. That was important and big. That horse went on, he jumped meter 50s in Wellington in Florida that winter. The other horse he was okay at the Royal, but otherwise, I don't know that he hit that many jumps. It was clear every single Sunday Grand Prix in Florida. I jumped one time under the lights in Wellington. I had one down. This is, 1 year earlier, I'm knocking all the jumps down in California, and now he's a clear round machine.
Wow.
That's amazing.
In Florida. And so that was, to me, it was really thanks to Kyle and that whole experience that my wife and I had. Yeah. And then there's, I could go on forever and ever, but there's two more probably really important ones. One is Ian Miller. Kyle is one of our favorite people. He's just such a positive guy and so helpful. And at the end of our time, he said, you know what you guys should do? You should ride with Ian. He said, this is what you should do next. I think he set us up with that, or the notion of it.
Mm-hmm. And you're done.
Yeah. And so it took a minute. We went home and then, we're chatting away thinking, I think we should call Ian. We should call. So we called Ian. And he said, Ian answered the phone and said, absolutely, I'll help. I'm coming to the summer series at Spruce Meadows. And so anyways, there's a lot of funny stories about that first interaction. But long story short, we ended up riding with Ian then for a year. That was such a different experience, because whereas Kyle is such a feel-based guy, and that was sort of the real takeaway was how to feel what's happening. Ian is such a process-based guy, which is where so much stuff is going to be done in training at home. Yep. And then there is no magic at the show. I'm really summarizing very, but the idea is you should have done your homework so that you're not trying to be a magician at the show. And a little bit Kyle was sort of the opposite, which is, first of all, there is no home. Yeah. There was no home. So what are we doing? We're going to the next show. We're going to figure it out.
That is home.
So, and so that was interesting to be able to get both of those opportunities to think about training and competing from two like polar opposite lenses. So that was another huge inflection point. And then probably my favorite, which is honestly, it's a contentious topic because we're not supposed to talk about him anymore, but George Morris. I had the luxury and privilege of riding with and for George for a number of years, sort of off and on. But he was... I have no problem saying he's for sure the most influential person in my riding journey, without a doubt, by far. Because nobody resonated more with their sort of process in the sense of understanding horses, meaning it's not a one-size-fits-all, you fit in this box or nothing. It's not that. It's a process or system can be generic enough to accommodate every horse. Well, that's different than saying the process being narrow and we're going to try to take this horse that doesn't fit and we're going to jam him in there. Oh, it didn't work. Well, we're still sticking with that.
Yep.
Never mind the horse. His sort of view and my takeaway from it was, no, everyone is welcome. All the types of horses, come on in. Like, we will figure this out by following some very basic guidelines. And then he was like really, I don't know, it's like a weird saying, but he was like really about that life. He was really about horse training and trying to really understand them and try to how to bring out the best in them, how to teach them, how to be
more individualized.
Absolutely. Like it's an individual approach to every single horse, and yet the system is not individualized.
Yeah.
That's sort of the thing that I think some people get wrong, which is they're all individuals and there is no system.
Not
or
quite.
they can't be individuals. We're going to turn them into warriors, and we need to shut off their mentality, and they need to just be soldiers. Like, I don't like that, and it does not resonate for me at all. I really appreciated his sort of thoughtful approach to that, which was, we are going to figure it all out, and the system won't change because guess what? It hasn't for hundreds of years. Like, you can read all of these old books and everything, and if you're a follower of the classical dressage and what they do in the Spanish school or the, any of these things, so many of these concepts and principles have not changed, and nor should they. The way we choose or decide to interpret them and apply them to an individual horse, that will differ over time, but the system hasn't changed and doesn't need to. That's he definitely most influential for me by far.
That's super cool.
I love these stories.
Cool. Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's amazing how different people, they give you different things that definitely resonate, and how, horsemanship is such a balance. And, even though certain things don't exactly resonate right now, it's important to still absorb that information. And, even if you have a horse who comes in and certain things work a certain way, but then you get one that doesn't come in and doesn't fit the, normal
mold.
routine or mold. It's nice to have that spectrum and to have all of that wisdom and knowledge from all of those people that there's just so much value in that. And all of that experience, I'm sure, is just going to benefit you for your entire life. So that's super cool.
The other thing that really struck me was when you were talking about how, Ian Miller and Kyle had very different perspectives and on how a show is supposed to go, but they're both equally successful. Like, they're both on these amazing paths and trajectories, and it goes to show that one size doesn't fit all for humans as well. You don't have to do it just by the way this trainer does it and they were successful, because it may not work for you as an individual. So I think that was really interesting to listen to, because I think so many of us think that we have to be in this cookie cutter shape, especially in the horse industry, whether it's Western or English, that you have to perform a certain way and you have to think a certain way to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. When we left our time with Kyle, I was sort of grateful to be home for a while. Yeah.
Appreciation of home.
And then and likewise with Ian, honestly, like, it was very, I don't know, like, rigid is a bit rough to say, but it was pretty structured. And so when we came home, I was happy to have some like freedom.
With that, and kind of reflecting on your past and where you are now, my next question is, do you have any advice for riders who dream of competing at that high level but don't know where to start? We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. Yeah,
I think it's funny. Like, makes me feel old to say it like this, and I on one hand I don't really feel that old, but it so much has changed in the last 20 years. Like, so much about this sport has changed. I wish I came with the stats in at the top of my mind, but like, just in terms of the number of 5-star FEI shows that exist in the world from 20 years ago, it's wild. The difference is insane. The fact that Clip My Horse is a service that, this is where you can see all the show videos you want from any of the big shows. Like, that didn't exist. You can't keep up with the sport, or you couldn't keep up with the sport or find out what was going on or stay connected. And the sport felt way more disconnected and sporadic. And now it's 52 weeks a year. You want a show, there's a show. You want to do a 5-star show, there's probably 3 of them. Like, there's so much more. And with that too, with YouTube and Instagram and all of these things, that also means finding and buying and sourcing horses has gotten both easier and trickier at the same time, in the sense that it feels like it's really difficult to find a diamond in the rough anymore, because the second they put that video on social media, it's going to get scooped up. Like, you can't happen upon it. Whereas at one point in time, you could probably find an inexpensive horse. Now, not really. Yeah. So then it shifts the way that people get into it. Well, one way to get into it is have good backing. So be from a wealthy family, or have wealthy sponsors, or something like that gets you access to good horses, or breed them or buy them as foals and play the long game, but which is initial capital expense, maybe less, but it costs a lot to keep horses nowadays and show them and all of that. So you're really just spending the same money over a longer period of time. And then it comes a little bit too to be like, what's the best way, given your particular unique timeline, because this happens a lot in our world anyways. Like, you get a lot of, especially young girls that get into the sport, they're sort of mid to late teenage years when they're looking at university or, quote, real life coming down the horizon. It's like, well, they have actually not a long period of time in which they're going to participate in the sport at a serious level before something else happens. If you have, if you had a student like that, or a friend or somebody that had maybe 2 years to maximize everything, and then probably they're not going to do it again, at least for a while, till they're done school. That situation, well, then you're going to look at it differently. Like, get yourself the best horse you can and go do it.
That time,
and so this costs a lot of money, because you should get the best, most experienced horse. If you want to have a good time doing this sport and go to participate, you need an excellent horse and you need an excellent coach, and you need to go and do it if you have a short window. Now, that's, of course, nice to say and not realistic for almost everyone. So for almost everyone else, the idea is to try to find the way, like, what is your reality? Like, maybe you could lease a horse. Maybe you can't buy it, but maybe you could lease one. Okay, maybe not that. Maybe you could be an apprentice. Maybe you could be an assistant for somebody. Maybe you could be a catch rider, a flat rider for somebody at a big program. And are you really doing it? No, not on the face of it, not initially, but you're around it. Maybe that's fulfilling in some way. Maybe, and maybe you just love young horses. So just go buy yourself a nice young horse and enjoy it for a couple of years, and who knows where that goes. Like, there are a lot of ways to enjoy horses and to enjoy this sport. But I think if there was some, there's another scenario where, let's say you have sort of an ambitious young rider, mid-teens, not quite 18, finishing high school, that sort of a thing. And they have big ambitions and they have some backing. Their parents or grandparents, whatever, are happy to support them with real money, but still maybe not enough to actually do it. Then my suggestion is try your best to get yourself to the highest level of sort of knowledge that you can while you're still in high school. So you're getting ready to springboard yourself, and then you need to go somewhere. Become a working student for someone. Go and learn, rather than, I'm saying this now from my own personal experience a little bit, is like, I wish I had done more of that and less tried to self-fund for experience. Because it's expensive. Like my mom she did a lot for me, and I owe her so much for the opportunities that I had. And yet still, like, in the big picture of this sport, we didn't have anywhere near the money to actually do it. And because that was sort of especially looking back, that was always the case. Never really could do it. We're not a Gates or a Jobs or whatever, like those families that can, whatever, the ultra wealthy. That was never us. I always had, including all of these horses I've referenced so far, they have all been really good horses, but they had never jumped as big as I eventually jumped. Like, I never once had a horse that had already done the level. The first horse that I did actually was when I worked at Spruce Meadows. It was in 2022, and it was Carnival, and he went to the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Just happened that Spruce Meadows owned him, and I was there, and I was able to ride. That was the first horse that ever had jumped bigger than I ultimately would, because there is no bigger than the Olympics, and I didn't go to the Olympics with him. But my first time jumping the World Cup qualifier, that horse had never done it either. That's all we could afford was there's funny stories about it. It was real money to buy the horse in the real world, but in the horse world,
It was
this
tiny.
is cheap horse,
Yeah.
not expensive horse. And to be very clear, like I still feel extremely fortunate to be able to do that because I got to go jump these classes.
Yeah.
But it's a little misleading in the sense that it made me feel like, oh yeah, I'm close. Like I'm pretty close to doing it. Except for that what was going to happen after that. There is no other horse after that. You can't do that again. That was everything.
Yeah.
So then it becomes, oh God, okay, now I guess we got to sell it if we want to do the next one. But that sucks because I really love the horse. And it's like this, but this is the game you get into. And so if I could give my former self advice, it would be don't do that. Try to don't sell them and try to get into the business game of it so early. There will be plenty of time to do that, and you absolutely will. But try to go be a working student for someone. And in my case, I would have wished I went to Europe.
Yeah.
Like there was a time in my sort of late 20s where I thought, maybe I'll go to Europe now. Like maybe I'll see if I can get a riding job there. I had done a lot of things. I jumped a lot of 5-star classes and had good results and lots of, good results with students and stuff. And I thought, but it's the industry in this area is a bit unique and different. And it's hard to sort of get access to horses because it's one thing with Spruce Meadows in our backyard. It's like I said, there is no connection between that and how are you going to get there. There is the major players. There's a lot of money in the city, but the major players that have the money, they spend their money sponsoring at Spruce Meadows. They don't buy horses for people.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so then what are the people supposed to do that need horses?
Yeah.
Self-fund. Well, we've already discussed how difficult that is. Whereas
it's a round robin, right?
Yeah, and then there are outfits in Europe. I mean, there's actually quite a few, good initiatives that are coming online, like Next Generation Professionals, put together by some people in Europe and the States, trying to get riders of sort of that vintage, if you will, access to investors. I would be shocked to know, my 20-year-old self, that, people want to invest in horses, just not here. Find me one. Who wants to do that? It's all wealthy families or it's whatever, but there's no real investment case for the sport in our area.
Yeah.
So that's what made me think, oh God, maybe I should go to Europe. Oddly enough, the response was I'm too old. And so I was like, shoot, I should have done this earlier. Which is why that's part of my advice to younger riders. If you're, getting out of high school, is like, but here's the thing, is like, if you're going to go do that, if you're going to go to Europe and you want to be a working student, you need to bring something to the table because being young enough is not good enough.
Yeah.
You need to, so how do you try to, seize the opportunity in your late teenage years and get the best advice and the best horses you can and get yourself to a level so that with the express purpose of springboarding yourself to Europe.
I want to go to Europe as a working student. I'm not an English rider, but I'll learn. I'll figure it out. Although when you said you were too old, now I'm a little stressed. I'm older than a teenager.
It's a lot older than a teenager.
One of the reasons for that obviously is there's two big reasons that I have surmised. One is that there is a U25 division, and that's really helpful. So if you're a horse dealer in Europe, or if you're at whatever, even anywhere in North America, if you have a horse that is quite a good one, like meter 40, meter 45 horse, it's going to get lost in the sort of world of special types if you put it in a Grand Prix in like a big 5-star. You can't jump that. It's not that horse. But what can it do? Go and win a U25 class. And so you need a U25. It's helpful to have a U25 rider on your sort of staff, if you will, to go and campaign these horses. That gets them out in the world. There's it has created a niche market, this U25 division. So that's helpful. And then reason number two that you need to be young is it's kind of helpful to have riders working for you that have a sort of level of like courage, bravery, this and that, and some like a level of skill and expertise, but not too much. The second that it's now you're in this conversation about training philosophy and you're bringing something to the table that way, no. You need to be the person that is you're happy for the opportunity and you're going to do what your boss tells you to do.
You're malleable.
But you have enough experience, education, yada yada.
To be useful, like to not be a liability at every moment.
There's a lot of liabilities.
Oh man, this is a great conversation. I want to move on from kind of talking about just Grand Prix in general and move on to you building your business. Grayton Farms, how did it come to be? Is this something that you saw coming in your future when you think about when you were younger?
Yeah. So it came to be a reality when I was in my last year of university.
Okay.
or at least the notion of it. Because as I say, like, it was my second last year of university is when we bought our first horse. So it was
a quick change.
Yes. And like I said, I was playing tennis a lot then, and I was playing tennis 4 days a week after university, and 2 days a week in the morning I had gym sessions. So like this was a big commitment just for tennis. And then in and around my university classes, then I was also riding. And I was riding.
That's busy.
Yeah, at Frank's place. And I was riding like 4 to 6 horses a night. Like it was a lot.
And university?
Engineering. I was taking 6 courses a
Oh
semester.
my God. I went to university. Oh my God. Yeah. No.
It was a lot. And so to be fair, I did that for a year, and then something had to give. And the thing that ended up giving was tennis. I was good, but not great. It was never going to be, like, to be fair, I wasn't passionate about it. I was relatively good. I was playing tournaments, and I think it was called the National Select Tour or something like this. I was playing tournaments. I was not winning tournaments. And to be fair, my elbow was starting to really hurt.
Oh, you got the elbow.
Yeah, and it was nagging all the time. And anyways, I did not have a totally dynamic game.
Tennis elbow.
Yeah.
Ending of careers.
Yes. So I had to give up tennis, but that freed up a lot more time for riding. So I got deeper and deeper and more into that, and it became abundantly clear to me that, I'm not going to do this engineering thing. Like, I'm going to do this horse thing. So how do we make that happen? And so I made an arrangement with my mom that we were going to make a business plan, and we were going to do this thing for 3 years after graduating. So that was sort of the commitment.
Kind of
yeah. So we started a company, started to make some plans about how we're going to actually make this happen. And that's sort of what propagated a bunch of the things. Like my wife, my then girlfriend, Holly, she was working at Agrium then. It's now called Nutrien, but she was working at Agrium. She still had a horse on the side as well. And I was sort of cruising along. I was doing this thing in the World Cup qualifiers in California with bad results, but happy to be here. And we're sort of thinking like, well, this isn't the pathway. Like something's got to happen differently. And so during the summer shows at Spruce Meadows, Holly was at the Time Faults pub there and was just having a drink and met Kyle King's sister, Erin. And they were just sort of just having a nice time chatting and this and that. And by the end of their conversation, there was a full commitment to, after the Masters in September, we're going to hit the road. She's quitting her job.
And you're like, whoa, when did this happen?
And she's like, you're welcome to come if you want, but I'm going. And I was like, I'm coming, absolutely. So off we went. And so that sort of set things in motion. We thought, oh God, okay, I guess this is happening. So we started to get ourselves organized. It gave us 2 months to get our life together enough to go and do this.
Oh, geez.
This excursion with Kyle, it's open-ended tour that we didn't really know when it was going to end. It ended up being a year, more or less. That is when we decided, okay, well, we better have a business, like an actual business name. Like we had my mom and I, we had developed this idea,
we have
sort
the
of
idea,
the
name
notion.
needs to come.
Yeah. And so then we incorporated a company, and then things started to get a little bit more formalized that way. And then at one point, actually it was when we were away, my mom had always wanted to move to the country, and because we lived downtown, like right downtown Calgary.
Oh.
And so she, like, Holly and I were in
like,
Florida.
Urban to rural, let's go.
Yeah, that's right. And so we just sort of get an email one day, because this is before, anyways, this was, I'm pointing out my age, but yeah, so we get an email saying that she's going to sell the house. She's bought this farm. This is all happening. So when you come home, there will be a home base. I was like, okay. So
Mom.
You're
like, oh.
Yeah, I guess. And so we were like, we had not ever done that before, lived on a farm. Through my various times, like I worked at the barn when I was younger, and like and we were looking after our own horses. So I knew the horse care part was fine. The farm ownership and management thing was new.
The gravel roads and snow removal.
Absolutely, yes. And getting the paddocks set up just right, and
When the water breaks.
Yes, yeah. So there were some big projects when we came home from that trip to sort of get the property set up just the way that we wanted, and that's how the business came to be. And to be very fair, the business has evolved and morphed like so many times. Like when we started, it was a business in name only because there was no business. Like I was making prize money on the road in Florida, and then as soon as we came home and we're taking a break from the shows, then it's like, well, there's no revenue anymore. So what do we do? What are we doing now?
I get it.
We went and did our thing with Ian, and when we came back from that's when things, I would say, more officially became set up as a business, because then we needed to start to make some money. That was the end of our 3-year thing with my mom.
Yep.
So the backing was over. And so then from that point on, we had to figure our way forward, which was like, we're going to have to teach some lessons or sell some horses, or I don't know. We're going to have to do something, I guess. And then we're going to need staff, I guess, if we get big enough. And then just so it was a lot of like learning curve sort of a thing that way. And the business certainly morphed over the time from, we started out as, being very small and happy to have anyone. Like if you had a horse and wanted to pay to be here, awesome. Let's show up. No problem. And then it became more sophisticated in the sense that we started to be more clear about the kind of clients or students that we wanted. And then at one point it grew, and for 3-4 years there, it was really big. We had 25 horses full time, and I had 6 full-time staff and an assistant trainer, and it was big. A funny story about that too, because we're showing at Thunderbird in Vancouver, which is a showgrounds we go to a lot. 4 or 5 times a year we'll make that drive. It's a great show for all kinds of reasons. Like if you have a high performance horse, there's classes for you. If you have a young horse, it's a really good place to get some exposure that way. Hunters, it's the only place in Canada, in Western Canada, if you have a real hunter, it's the only place to be. Like we can't do it here in Calgary. Do they have hunter classes? Yes. There's just no competition. So if you want to sell one or produce one or get some real results, you got to go to Thunderbird. And so that's always been part of our yearly schedule. But so we're at Thunderbird. We have 18 horses at the show. We're working our tails off, and the weather's always iffy in May, as it is in Vancouver. I had 4 horses. I had a couple for our sales group that we had, that I was trying to jump some classes. We're showing horses for sale. I had 1 horse that I was riding for Spruce Meadows already, that was a young horse, was trying to get some experience for him, and plus then 14 other students. Like it was a lot. And on the drive home, Holly and her mom were in one car. I was driving the truck and trailer, and we're sort of on the phone saying, like, I don't even remember what happened in these 2 weeks. Like it was such a whirlwind, and I don't remember.
I've done that.
Yeah, I blacked out.
Yeah, it's what it felt like.
I don't know what happened.
I felt like I don't remember my interactions with my own horses. And I said, like, what are we doing this for? Like, I love horses, and I like teaching. I like coaching. I like all of that. But why did I get into it? Not for that. I got into it for the horses. My own horses.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so Holly's mom gets her laptop out on her lap and is just sort of typing in on her little Excel spreadsheet. And 20 minutes later, I get a call from down the road saying, so if you downsized your business to have basically 4, and you got rid of all of your staff except the bare minimum, you guys would be making more money. You'd have more time and you'd be making more money, because as it turned out,
Holly's mom.
So much of our costs were going to overhead. And,
for sure. And salary.
And salary and then the CRA and all these things. So it was...
CRA is my mistress.
Yeah. So we came home and basically made a plan, a concentrated effort to try to position the people that didn't really fit that sort of future goal. We found them new places to be and whatever. I mean, we didn't just like change the locks or whatever, but we positioned them and really shrank our business. And we've made a concentrated effort not to grow it beyond a certain point ever since. Holly and we're very engaged with our horses all the time. Like when we go to shows, we don't have grooms, or we have one only, and like we do it all.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And not only for the financial reasons, but also that gets us back to what it is that we really wanted, which was
what's it about.
Yeah. I like that. I'm of the same mind there. I like to be in the moments. Riding is great. I love to ride, but I kind of sometimes just want to be with my horse. Like I just want to take that moment to just share with them. Mm-hmm. So I like that. I guess, so you kind of answered my next question of the vision it started as to where it's changed now. So I'm just going to move on to a different question and say, has your approach to sourcing, training, and developing high-performance horses, like, do you think that continually changes then as you've started to age?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, there's a lot of factors that can make those changes. I think, the one that comes to mind is like COVID changed a lot for us in how we're going to go about doing this, because it's always been part of our business model to try to source horses in Europe. Whether that's for our clients or for ourselves to develop and sell, or for ourselves to develop and show and eventually sell. And whether that's for young horses or older horses or whatever, we have always preferred to go to Europe for that. And it's not to say that to be very clear, there are plenty of nice horses around here. There are. And we have bought young horses from here. We've bought 3-year-olds from breeders. We've bought older horses from people for students, and they're still all around. But as I was alluding to earlier, there was sort of this feeling of you may be able to discover a diamond in the rough if you go to Europe, whereas they're all known entities here. Yeah. One of the sort of distinct weaknesses about our industry here is that a lot of breeders don't have riders or cooperation with riders. So a lot of the breeders have nice horses, and they're 6 years old and never been to a horse show. They're 6 years old and they just started jumping. Anyways, they're so far behind the 8 ball now, which is it still a nice horse? Yes, but you're signing up for a horse that will be perennially behind. And so if you're trying to buy horses to sell, as part of the business plan, that's not a good entity to sell. Yep. It's not that it's a bad horse. If you're looking for one horse for you for the rest of your life, have at it if you want. I don't know. Yeah. But it's hard to go to the, 6 months down the road, you've got a 6-year-old from a breeder that's going to its first horse show. And then we're going to have to wait a couple years before you can actually get it caught up to be of value, to be able to sell it for profit and so on and so on. And so, there's pluses and minuses to the whole thing, because a lot of, there are also breeders around here that go way too fast. Yeah. 3-year-olds jumping full courses, and for our warm blood types, they do not mature that fast. No. And so just because we have this phrase in our training all the time, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. You can get caught up in the glitz and glamour, or the shiny object, so to speak, of you watch a video of a 3-year-old jumping a 1.15 meter course indoors at home, and it's like, well, yeah, I should buy that one. Look at the price for that it's the same money as one that hasn't jumped that big. Why wouldn't I buy the one that has? And then as you get older, you're like, well, that's exactly why you shouldn't do that. That's literally the exact reason you should not buy that horse, is because it's such an unknown for how much wear and tear that's already put on the horse. Oh, yeah. It's how many steps did you skip in its fundamental training to get there? Yeah. Really. And so I'd rather take an untouched 3-year-old than one that's jumping around it. You know what I mean? That's personal preference. I'm not saying there is no guarantee or whatever, but that's the way my mind has gone from having done it, to be honest. We've seen that rodeo before. So finding them in Europe where they're produced a little bit more structured, in the sense that the breeders all have cooperated. They either have their own rider, or their family has riders, or whatever, but the horses are produced. They may be still green or whatever, but it's a little bit easier to compare apples to pears instead of apples to shoes or something. Yes.
They're still in the fruit group. Yeah. Versus completely. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think as from a practitioner standpoint, horses' bodies don't develop by 3, especially in warm bloods. Mm-hmm. And so when you said, how many steps are you skipping there? I fully feel that too, where it's how much did you push those ligaments, those tendons, those muscles that may not have been at that point to handle that, or at the weight or the size. So yeah, I agree with you. And being able to do small things and small pieces when they're young to set them up for a foundation for when they're older is much better than just jamming it in.
Yeah, totally, 100%. The COVID piece of that, where I was alluding to, was that we liked going to Europe. We had really good connections. We were saying this the other day, but we bought more than 20 horses from one particular family. It's the Hendricks family, and we're not unique in that sense. They have a lot of really long-time customers, which speaks volumes to them and their service and the horses they can find and all of that stuff. But that's just us. We're small Prix, basically. We have a small operation,
But we've bought that many horses from them. And so we like to go there every chance we get. I was just there last week trying horses with them. And in that sense, it feels so familiar. But COVID really changed everything in the sense that all of a sudden,
Denied access.
We were lucky because our sport got to keep going in some way, in a weird way. But the sport kept going, and people, like, it was one of the safer things to do. At one point, somebody said that anyway, because you're outside or I don't know what. And so that meant that the commerce part of it kept going a little bit. And so that meant we still needed to source horses. But then how are we going to do that if I'm not getting on a plane in the middle of COVID? Maybe you couldn't, but then even when you could, I was very weary about it. And so long story short, we had to start buying horses off of a video. So we didn't go try them first. We would have to just go on somebody's say-so.
That
was wild.
Too.
Yeah.
That was wild. That was something that we had never once been comfortable with before. And we heard people do it. And we, before COVID, and we kept thinking like, whoa, that's so risky. Those people are crazy. And then now in COVID, it's like, we are those people. And to be fair, like a couple times it worked great. And a couple times was like, yeah, well, obviously, had we gone to try the horse, we would not have bought it. We would have immediately felt the thing that we didn't know from watching the video or whatever. And so then, but even that practice evolved. So then it's like, okay, we're going to buy off the video, but I'm going to send a friend over there to go try it personally. So I'm not going to buy it off just a random video. I'm going to still try to involve some personal connection.
Yep.
Just stuff like that. And then even just experiencing the vettings, like, you can do a vet check for one of these horses in Europe. It's like, I guess we'll just go with their say-so. If the vet says it's good, we'll go with it. And then that evolved into, I want their vet to take the images, and then I want them to film the clinical exam, and they'll send that to my vet, and I want my vet to interpret the images. And it was like, but this is like, it evolves. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to do it. And, actually this year we bought a horse off a video in May through people that we've done a lot of business with before, but we did all of those steps. Like, we had a friend go try the horse. We had our vet look at all of the images. They watched the clinical exam and all of these things. And so that was sort of our level of comfort. Still, I wish that we had tried the horse. Yeah. Would we have bought it? Probably. But still, it just makes you feel better if you actually feel it once. Mm-hmm. And so, certainly COVID really shifted that. Anyways, I think cost notwithstanding, it's still the best way to do it is to actually go meet the horse and look it in the eye, and because it can tell you so much about who they are as a person, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the other thing I'm going to ask, because you're kind of talking about, maybe some misconceptions almost. Is there any one particular misconception people have about the business side of the horse industry?
Well, I think there's a lot. And I say that from personal experience. Like, I didn't know so much about how it works or what it takes or, any of those things. And so there was sort of, I'll say this was a phrase that George Morris told me when I rode with him. This was it hit me like a wall, because it changed my worldview, if you will. I had committed to, over the course of all of these people that I had ridden with and gotten a lot of experience with, to try to think, I'm trying to be the best rider that I can. Like, I want the most experience. I want to have the best understanding. I want to understand horses, to be able to communicate with them, to be able to build a relationship, to be able to understand how to develop individual and unique horses on their own unique pathway to wherever, to be able to position them with the right people, like all of it. That's where my focus was. And then George said to me one day, he said, Alex, nobody cares how well you ride. Nobody cares. That's not what matters. And I was like, what the hell? What do you mean? Here we are, like, we're sitting in the stands at Spruce Meadows. We had just walked a course. I had a really nice 8-year-old that I was jumping for Spruce Meadows, Lord Grantham, and walked this 1.50 meter course in the Meadows on the Green Ring, which is now a soccer field. It was a very hard course, and it was going to be his first time jumping that big and all of this stuff. And so I'm sort of getting in the mental space to do this with this talented young horse. But anyway, and George is telling me basically, like, the way that you have been focusing your attention is meaningless. I mean, that's like one way to say it.
Yeah, but that's where you got it. You were like, whoa, what?
And so I'm thinking, if it's not if it doesn't matter, if nobody cares, then what do you mean? Like, what does matter? And he said, no, like, once you reach a threshold of riding well enough, so to speak, there is no, like, bonus. There's no like, oh, you ride 10% better, that gets you 10% more horse. No. It's all going to be about the interpersonal stuff. He would refer to it as it's schmoozing and après-ski. That's what he called it. It was always après-ski. Which is like, he said, so when you're done this class today, this is why you need to have a groom. Your groom needs to look after the horse, and you need to go and find the wealthiest person in the room and schmooze. And I thought, oh God, that's gross. Like,
I don't want that.
It doesn't match who I am. I'm still, to be very clear, I am horrible at that. Like, I don't do it. I go home. I look after my horses or whatever. I'm a bad schmoozer.
Go to bed?
Yeah. I am a notoriously bad schmoozer. It makes me feel gross. Mm-hmm. However, when you think about it like that, it's like, well, yeah, that does make sense, because they're like the top tier riders in the world. Everyone rides well. Like, none of them ride poorly. Zero. None of them ride poorly.
No, they're good.
But it's not that the objectively best rider in the world is automatically number one in the world. No. That's not how it works. They don't have the best horses or the best results or whatever. Yeah. You're just now in a pile of people, all of whom have access to owners potentially if you schmooze well, or you make relationships. It's not schmoozing it's not only just gross, but it felt gross to me. But that is what it's about. It's like, how do you market yourself? How do you market yourself to owners? How do you sell a product to people that are going to help sponsor you or whatever?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that, you are the product.
And as it turns out, that's what it's all about. And so then it's like, so then should I stop caring if I'm riding well? And he said, no. Because you
still need to ride well.
Yeah, and he completed the circle for me, which was that I still think that you should try to ride as well as you can and ride the best in the world, because there is a virtue in that. Like that is worthwhile. It's better for the horses if you do. Mm-hmm. Will that translate into economic success for you? No. But it's still the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that, to be clear, this is one of the reasons that I really, really appreciated my time with George so much, is because that element was still true to him. It's not just X's and O's and dollars and cents and that sort of thing. He still actually cared about doing right by the horse.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. Yeah. Good perspective. Okay, so you've talked about her a little bit, and I think this is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting things about you. Mm-hmm. You and your wife, you guys have built something very special together. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us your story on how you met and how you guys became husband and wife?
Yeah, of course. So we've been together for 19 years, since 2006. And we met at least a year, maybe 2 years before that. It's when I was taking a tour of Jonathan Aslin's place, so Ben Aslin's dad, to consider going there to train. Ultimately, it was either Jonathan's place or Frank's place. This was that fork in the road moment for me, taking this tour of Jonathan's place, and Holly was working for Jonathan. She had just finished school and moved to Calgary, and because she's from Victoria. And so she was working as a groom for Jonathan when he had a good string of really good horses. He had a big team, and so this is before he went to the Olympics in Beijing with Rihanna Chiara. Anyways, big team. And so she's working there as a groom. I was introduced to her then. That's when we met. I was really awkward. I'm really awkward now, but I was even more awkward then. And so nothing happened, obviously. I just sort of shook her hand and said hello, and that was it. And then if you then fast forward quite a while, through mutual friends, because Holly became good friends with Kelly. When she stopped working at Attaché, she stayed really good friends with Kelly. So that's Jonathan's stepdaughter, Nancy's daughter. And they moved in together, so they were living together. Through mutual friends, we sort of got reacquainted. We went on one date. I was, again, really awkward. I'm pretty sure, that's the way Holly tells the story, I had a paper napkin, and I spent the entire dinner just like ripping little shreds into it. Which I don't know if that's true. It's a good story. I don't know how true that is, but I do believe I was very awkward. So nothing really, that didn't go anywhere. So then fast forward another several months or whatever, and we got reacquainted or reintroduced one more time, and we went out one more time, and we hit it off that time.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah, exactly. But she will say her favorite part of the story is that I was like 5 minutes late to pick her up. And she said, the writing was on the wall. I should have known because he has been late for everything since. And so I like to think that I was just upfront and clear and whatever. I am a little bit late all the time. But pretty much right away, like we saw a lot of each other and we really got along quite well, obviously, and it stayed that way. And so that was in 2006. And so 1 year later is when we both hit the road with Kyle. So we've been together for a year when we then embarked on this wild adventure up and down the east coast of North America.
And you were a little less awkward, obviously, because she
covered
stayed.
for me.
Yeah.
She was very kind.
It's balance.
Yeah. No, and you know, we're very different people, certainly, like different history, experience, whatever, different natural way, different personalities, all of this. So we're very different people, and certainly our love of the horse has been a meaningful amount of glue for us. But we appreciate each other's differences in that way too. Like, you know, we see the world differently and the same at the same time a lot of the time. So that's always interesting too. And
nice story.
Yeah, and we, you know, when we came back from, we've more or less been inseparable ever since. We have had these moments where, you know, Holly took a break from the business in, God, what year would this have been? Like 2014 maybe. So this is just sort of a little bit of a magnifying glass on Holly and who she is, because she's a very special person. But we're sitting around in October, sort of end of the show season, whatever year it was. She had taken a couple of like photography classes, like a lot of people do. And, you know, she has a nice camera and I don't know, take some pictures of horses or whatever. And she got a little more serious about it. She went to school. She got some certifications for publishing and for web design and for photography and this and that. She was really filling some of the downtime in our year by getting some formalized education about these things. And so this October, basically, she said, I think I'm going to start a magazine. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I would never say that, and I don't understand it at all. Like, why would you start a mag? But I just said, okay,
You're
cool,
like, sure,
good,
honey.
good, nice one, all right. But that she meant it, and then it was less than 90 days later that she had done exactly that. So she started. The magazine was called Alberta Showjumpers. So obviously a niche show jumping magazine. Focused on our province, but it was like 5,000 copy distribution. Totally ad-based. It was a free magazine supported by ads, articles written by professionals that we knew, vets. She did a lot of the content. I wrote an article. She did all of the design and layout. She sourced the printing. I mean, she did all of this in 90 days.
That's insane.
Yeah,
so
that's impressive.
Like, I'm going to do a magazine, and 90 days later, there was one. And it lasted for, I think it was 7 years.
Wow.
It died in COVID with all things print, basically.
Yeah.
It was like really tough. None of the store, like nobody would have print anymore. But it was quite good. And it was a dynamic thing. There was the magazine, and then there was a whole, there was a website component, and there was a newsletter, and there were tutorials, and there was interactive things. And so obviously in that period of time, she stepped back from our business, at least probably more to part-time, I would say, because she had to devote some time to doing this magazine thing. So that's quite remarkable that she was able to pull that off, and quite successful. And I think it was widely liked. I mean, I don't know, like, it's a bummer that it didn't keep going, but also we understand exactly how that came to be. So she took a break from the business then. And then obviously I took a hiatus from our business for 3 years when I worked at Spruce Meadows. Yep. So we've sort of come and gone, but we keep coming back, if that makes sense. And like, to be very fair, like, we're always, even when she was doing her magazine, she was still extremely helpful with the organizing of things and a lot of the at the show stuff, her what she could bring to the table for our students and helping organize and all that stuff. She was still doing it, just in a less formal way. And likewise for me when I was at Spruce Meadows, is like, obviously when we go home, we're going to talk about our business and the students that she had and plans and horses to buy or this and that. So yeah.
At this time, we also want to thank one of our advertisers, Nordic Auto Feed. So Nordic Auto Feed is an advanced free feed solution designed to easily manage individualized equine needs. Simply set up the desired feeding schedule, including the number of feeds and hay weight per day. This saves you time, money, and effort while enhancing the horse's health, well-being, and performance. So again, this is a weight-based automatic feeding system that feeds small rations up to 12 times per day. So please go and check them out. They are also Canadian. So if you're looking for ways to follow Alex and Grayton Farms' journey, you can check out their social media. They have Instagram at Grayton_farms, which will be linked in our description if you'd like, as well as they have a beautifully designed website. I'm going to assume Holly was the one who did that.
100%.
Go Holly.
Holly, shout out to you. So I will also link that in our description so that you're able to follow along.
Hey guys, so unsurprisingly, we have yapped longer than expected. I mean, I feel like this is just a regular thing now. So because this conversation was so incredible and Britton and I learned so much from Alex Grayton in our conversation, we didn't want to cut and skim it down to one episode. So we have decided to turn this interview into a 2-part series. So if you are interested in listening to the second part of this fabulous interview that Britton and I had with Alex Grayton, please head on over to part 2 of this interview. And we hope you're enjoying it so far. We had a really fabulous time with Alex. He is such a knowledgeable horseman. And we appreciate you tuning in and listening. So we hope to see you at part 2 of the Alex Grayton interview. Thanks for listening. Bye.